Hi everyone. Here we have another endgame position, and today we are going to talk about opposition and about different kinds of opposition. So black to move here can draw um, with the move king e5. Oh, sorry, one moment. That's the computer moving. With the move king e5, black is taking the virtual opposition. You can recognize the virtual opposition by drawing a rectangle, and if all the corners are dark, like here, all those corners are black, or if all the squares are white, we're talking about virtual opposition. First we must check if black can make a successful counterattack. Well, it doesn't work because white's pawn queens on its own. Queens. And now a queen can win against a pawn on the 7th rank. He just approaches and approaches and then comes closer with the king, but I'll show you that later. So black cannot make a successful counterattack, so the only move to draw here is taking the distant opposition. You should remember this is very important in pawn endgames. So how is black drawing this? For example, after king a4, we should play king e4, of course, taking the distant opposition. The distant, we're going to a light square, but we're keeping the distant opposition. King d4 will be wrong since white now takes the normal opposition. So that's why we have to take here the distant opposition, remember that. And we must also remember that we must stay inside the square of this pawn. You know the rule of the square. So when the king is inside of the square, you can catch the pawn. So even if white would try to divert black's king using his h-pawn, it will still be a draw, as we will see later. So king a4 is met by king e4, taking the distant opposition. He cannot approach now since we will take any opposition. So for example, king b3. Now we must defend with the diagonal opposition and staying inside of the square of the pawn. And for example, if he approaches now, not king c5 would be a horrible mistake. Why? Because we are leaving the square. So white's pawn queen. So again, we must take the diagonal opposition. And now he cannot come closer because since we will just take the normal opposition, if he tries to trick us somehow and go back to the first rank, take the normal opposition. Remember this. If he tries some like king c1, now we can see the patterns of virtual opposition even better. King e5 just draws, because look again, this is how you can check if the virtual opposition works. Again, all squares are black, so we're speaking of virtual opposition right here. So this move, and for example, if he goes here now, what do we do? Again, we take the virtual opposition, and this time we see it with different colors, because now the squares are all white, and there's no way that white can make progress here. So if we return, remember that in this position you must play king e5, taking the virtual opposition. And as white's trying to approach, king b3 is met by king d5, taking the diagonal opposition. And now if he tries to come over the 4th rank, then we just block him out by taking the opposition. We take the opposition, and black draws. After king e5, if he's trying to sacrifice this pawn in order to come closer with the king, he can enter the key squares, and he can also win this pawn, since we have to leave it now. But after we lose the g4 pawn, you should know this, of course, we take the normal opposition, and black draws this position easily. even with one pawn left on the board, because let's take this further. We take the opposition, we go back, he goes here, we go here, here we take the normal opposition. This is the only way to make progress, and now you must remember that you must retreat to g8 here. f8 loses and h8 also loses, because if you go to g8 now we can take the normal opposition and it's stalemate. Thank you very much. And if he goes here again, it's stalemate. So always remember this, that you should retreat to g8, not to f8, because now you lose since white takes the opposition and queens. So remember, this position is always draw, with king e5 taking the virtual opposition. So that's very important. And now I want to show you a study. We have the study in front of us by Barbera. It's just for entertaining value, and also maybe you can learn something from it. Why to move and win? Think for yourself first. Okay, why should play c7, threatening to promote to a queen? And as we can see, the rook cannot go to d8 since it is covered by the pawn. So the only way black can prolong the battle is by giving checks. And we cannot go to the c file now, since after rook d1 it's just a draw. After the next move, rook c1 check and draw. So the only way for white to make progress is to go through the b file now, and all black can do is give checks. So we go all the way down the b file, and after rook d3 check we play king c2. And now there's no rook d1 anymore. So but that's not why this study is so famous. The study is famous for the stalemate defense. Rook d4, and if white doesn't look on the board now and he will promote to a queen immediately, then he realizes to his horror that there's rook c4 check and draw by stalemate. Thank you very much. So white should promote to a rook, and now there is the threat of rook a8 checkmating, and the only way to defend is rook a4. And now the decisive double threat, king b3, with the threat of mate and the threat of taking the rook, and black cannot defend against this, and white will win. So that's quite a nice study. c7, and white can make progress by going to c2. And now this stalemate defends rook d4, so you must promote to a rook. And after rook a4, king b3, and the game is all over. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.